Hi, I'm Raj Kumar, President and Editor-in-Chief of DevX, here at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York, joined by Ken Wollack, who is of course the President of NDI, the National Democratic Institute, one of the world's leading organizations promoting democracy and governance around the world. And here in this frenetic week in New York, talking about civil society and building democracy. Great to have a moment with you.
Thank you very much. I would only say one thing, that I'd like to say we support and don't promote, because ultimately we're standing behind people overseas. We're not exporting something, we're responding to demands and requests for assistance and indigenous forces in societies around the world.
And how many countries are you supporting now?
65 countries we're present in.
Okay, and I imagine this must be one of the busiest times ever for you with the Arab Spring, with transitions to democracy around the world. Give us kind of the overview. Where are we in democratization?
Well, I think, perhaps 20 years ago we were a little bit too optimistic. The former Polish foreign minister, Bronislaw Geremek, once said that democracy doesn't necessarily go from triumph to triumph. And on one level, what you find is countries that have gone through a transition, and there have been many over the last 20 years, political institutions have to deliver. Democracy has to deliver. And so therefore, there is a great need in these societies for quality of life issues that benefit the entire population and not just the few.
It's not just enough to have an election. If people don't have electricity, if they don't have
and many times
services.
And many times they inherit the legacies of their non-democratic predecessors: poverty, disease, apathy. And in these societies, the rebuilding of political institutions, the linkages with citizens, the demand from citizens, as well as the response from those political institutions are critical. Because if not, people will either go to the streets, and that's not the place where public policy issues are best addressed, or they'll vote for some populist leader who will try to provide easy answers to complex issues.
And what about support for these issues from the developed world, from donor agencies, the US, Europe? Obviously we're in a period of austerity and budget cuts. Is there strong support for democratization and governance, or are you fighting an uphill battle there? How do you feel?
Well, like everybody else, we're fighting budget constraints in the United States, and that affects everybody's budget. But at the same time, the bipartisan support in the U.S. for democracy support efforts, I think are pretty wide and deep, because they're not particularly expensive programs. Requires a rather modest expenditure of funds. And they also see that we're responding to the demands of people on the ground, whether they be civil society activists, political party leaders, parliamentarians, or government officials, and women who are trying to assume greater political leadership in these countries against tremendous odds.